We will now go ahead and continue our media availabilities. We are now joined by Kurt Busch, driver of the #1 Monster Energy Chevrolet for Chip Ganassi Racing. Thanks for joining us, Kurt.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Please raise your hand and we will get a mic over to you. We'll start with Pat and then go to Nate.
Pat DeCola, NASCAR.com. When's the last time in your career that you remember having this much fun behind the wheel?
It's always funny, like when people are telling different stories and they're like, yeah, you know, back in the day when it was fun. And I've been trying to remind everybody or just influence the fact that, no, this is right now and this is fun. It wasn't more fun then. We'll look back on this and go, yeah, it takes time for things to settle in and sink in. But no, for me, when I first came into the series, you know, 22-year-old kid from Vegas, had to cut my way through some pretty heavy areas, you know, to make it to the top. And you're still nervous that you don't know if you're going to make it stick or make it to where you're going to be around for a long while. And, you know, I had a blast with every team, and it's just a matter of keeping it competitive and at that top edge. And, you know, over the years, it just feels like the older I get, the easier it is to accept some of the tougher days, and then to enjoy the big days with more of a excitement, more of a passion, and more fun. And yeah, it's tough though, because like early on, Mark Martin's like, hey, you're gonna have some good days, you're gonna have some bad days. Just try to draw a nice line and keep it there. And ever since I met Ashley, there is no bad days, and everything is up here for excitement and fun. And yes, I would say that right now, just with Monster and with Chip Ganassi and everything that's going on, it's a blast. You know, each week is fun because there's speed to be found and there's teamwork to work on to make sure that we're gonna have the best weekend. And it brings me back to that passion and that desire when I was younger to go out there each week and try to make sure we're getting the most out of each session.
We'll go to Nate.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Kurt, after the race, Dale Jarrett asked you last week about where you guys need to improve, and you said that you felt like you need to get better on short tracks and lower grip tracks, and you also said, kind of, I think, lobbying maybe the team, hey, let's invest in getting better on these tracks. Would this be a place like that, and were the comments well received? I mean, do you feel like the team is maybe putting an extra effort in now that you won and have qualified for the playoffs?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, a few weeks back, we were leading into the halfway point, and I left some bullet points with some of the top engineers and management on this category or this category and that category. And then with the way that Daytona went for us, where it was so close to a win, but yet, okay, what else do we need to position ourselves better to be closer to wins? That's when some other bullet points from other engineers popped up, and Larson's evaluation of where he feels the 42 car is. And yes, that has opened up more talks about building, you know, different style cars for different style tracks instead of just trying to use a 1.5 mile style car for a short track. There's things that Gibbs is doing, there's things that Penske's doing, and we have to apply it the best way that we can. And some of it's through the motivation of Chip Ganassi, Rob Kaufman, and Felix Sabates to get it to that A++ level. And so I think it's been well received, and you know, you can't just completely tip over the apple cart mid-season, especially when things are going good, but it's looking ahead to the future and what we can do to make sure that we make the best playoff run this year and look at things for 2020 and beyond. Yeah, to finish your question, yeah, like this is a short track, low grip. This is where if we have a good run this weekend, then we have turned a good corner. If we struggle a little bit, it shows that this is that weakness for us, and we have to get that fixed.
We'll go to Jeff and then over to Lee.
I may have missed it, Kurt, if you said somewhere this weekend, but how did you end up getting home last week?
The Ganassi team plane, they reserve seats on Victory Air. I think there's 6 or 7 Challenger 80s or whatever they are for planes. So there's like 6 different crew member planes that a bunch of guys jump on. And so they held us, and we got on. I think there was maybe 3 or 4 seats left on the whole plane itself. And so Ashley and I jumped on that plane and we got home around 4:15 a.m.
Go down to Lee.
Lee Spencer, RacingVoice.com. You mentioned looking at 2020 and beyond, and after the race, you said on Monday you were going to start looking at contracts and things of that nature. Have you started the ball rolling? Because I get the indication you have no desire to go anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if I'm driving in 2020 and beyond. It would be what I'd want to do to help a program or to give my knowledge and to be part of a team and to make things work here for 2019 and continue to improve whether I'm driving or I'm not to help all of Ganassi. And it's just a matter of if I'm driving or if I'm not, I'm still going to do my job to make sure that we're progressing and pushing towards the future on what I believe is important and what they want to do to apply it and what they believe is important and what I have to listen to.
But it doesn't sound like you have any intention of stop driving. I mean, that's kind of my point. I mean, you just don't seem like you're ready to make that move.
Well, you're asking me all these fun questions when everything's on a high, when everything is great and we're coming out of victory lane and, you know, having fun, scavenging rides home and just living at the top level. And so we'll see how things all piece together. I don't have all the full answers, but things are all pointing in the right direction to be teamed up together and to continue to race and to win races and to run at a championship. I mean, I haven't thought about it other than through your question, but if I'm able to make a run at the championship this year and win it overall, that could change things as well, and that wouldn't happen until the week of Thanksgiving.
And looking ahead to Pocono, they're going to use the PJ1 there. Learning what you did with the new car and the configuration the last time that we went there, how do you think it's going to change the complexion of racing when we return?
Yeah, I think it will definitely help with creating different lanes and being able to produce a lap time not in the optimum groove. That's been the tough part about Pocono and some of the other tracks. The optimum groove is utilized, and that's where the best lap time comes from. Therefore, there's not a lot of passing for the lead. If we can create a second lane or a third option and be able to run a really good lap time as the second or third place guy, then you have a chance at passing the leader. So I think it's a good option to try out, and you have to commend the tracks and Goodyear and NASCAR and the drivers all working together to find the best product.
Go to Reed, and then we'll come right down here.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Starting with Newman in 2002, Jimmy in 2003, you in 2004. There are 6 drivers in the field this week that have 3 wins each at this track through various generations of race cars. What is it about this place? Is it a feel that you get that carries through all of that time and all the rule changes and lets you continue to be successful?
Yeah, there's certain tracks that when you find a nice setup, that it stays hot for a while and you're able to use it the next time you come back because not much changed, whether it's been aero or the tires. I remember in '04 when I swept the 2 races here, the second race had a lot of weather issues and we didn't get a lot of practice time. So we were all forced to use the setup that we used at the first race. And so that helped us as a race winning team be able to sweep the races that year. You know, this track's similar a bit to Bristol. If you find that right setup, it works for a little bit.
Bob Bianchi, WSMN. Every team you've gone to, you've really raised their bar, even some teams that were struggling. What is it about you, in your own mind, what is it about you that you're able to do that no matter where you go, no matter what team it is, you're able to bring them up?
I appreciate that. I started out racing with my dad, and when I was with my dad, we didn't have a big racing budget. We were just kind of scraping it together, and he taught me a lot about communication, and he would ask me so many questions. You know, as a 16-year-old, I felt frustrated, like, really, I got to analyze the car this much? And he goes, well, if you do that, it makes my job easier to help you with the setup. And so when you learn from an early age and a successful racer like my dad was, it gets instilled in you on how to communicate the proper things with the car, and it gives you that confidence to know what you want changed in the car and to help. And then there's days where it can hurt, though, where I'm so confident in what I know I want with the car and the crew chief didn't get it to me, that there's that frustration with it. And so it's just a matter of trying to help the crew chief and the engineering and pit crew, everybody. I just want their jobs to be easier, because if their jobs are easier, they're doing better, and ultimately the car that I'm driving will have better results.
We'll come back down here to Pat.
Pat DeCola, NASCAR.com. You sort of mentioned that the title scenario might impact how you race next year, or like if you are racing next year. Can you imagine a better scenario than kind of riding off into the sunset like that? And like, if you won the championship, what would bring you back next year?
It's always hard to play what if. I don't want to put too much ahead of it. And it would be the ultimate scenario, right? John Elway style, Super Bowl win. And with everything that's been accomplished in my career, that's what's allowed me to also have more fun. I've got a lot of boxes checked off. You know, even last year to get my first ever super speedway pole at Talladega last October, not a lot of guys would put much emphasis in that category, but it's like, all right, now I have a pole on short tracks, road courses, intermediates, and a super speedway pole finally. That's what's made this fun. And so what would bring me back is if like Monster Energy, Global Poker, Gear Wrench, and everybody's putting together their advertising campaign and how they want to push to sell more product, that's where it would hit home for me here. And then I would react to what we want to do together to make sure everybody's feeling the benefits, selling more stuff, having more fun at the track, and ultimately, you know, for me, I would then be approaching 42, 43 years old, and there's a lot of young talent out there, and it would be like that chance to maybe pick the guy, the girl that's going to come up and drive after I'm done racing.
What boxes do you still have to check?
It's a good question. Another championship, ultimately. More playoff wins. And again, the last few years I haven't led a lot of laps in races, and I want to lead some more laps and be up front. And so, I don't know. I don't know the exact boxes. Maybe I need to reevaluate real quick, and I'll get back to you.
We'll take a last question in the back right there.
Kurt. Terrell Covey with the Portsmouth Herald. I just wanted to ask you, you just mentioned racing with your dad, and you know, you and your brother coming up through and from that experience to where you were at Kentucky with one another. I'm sure you've talked about this before, but talk a little bit about how important family is still in racing, even when you get to the level where you're at now.
You know, I would say 90% of everybody that's made it to this top cup level, and if you're a winner, it helped with the way you got here by family. Family is what really helps keep the drive alive, so to speak, with the travel that it takes to go when you're first starting out, the money that it takes, because racing is very different than stick and ball sports, where you have to have the extra money for sets of tires and the fuel and crash damage and things that it takes. And so the time and investment from a set of parents, that's something that Kyle and I are very grateful for. Our mom and dad didn't sacrifice much, and we went to the track with as little and as much as we could and made the best of it. And Dad was there to teach me. I felt like I was there to teach Kyle, along with my dad teaching Kyle. And it was really neat. Like, I was racing late models, struggling in college, and didn't know how far I'd get, because Mom's like, man, you probably need to get a real job. This racing thing is really starting to take over your life, but we're almost out of money. And yet my little brother was just starting out at the age of 12 in legend cars, and I just wanted to help him as much as I could. And so family's always been there. It's great to race Kyle at this top level. I always have to remind people a lot, Kyle and I didn't race against each other much when we were kids, just because we're 7 years apart. So anytime I was bumping up in a racing division, he was never there racing until we got ultimately to this Monster Energy Cup Series level. And so this is where we've had the most races against one another. And so that's the family side. It's still there. It's fun. You know, it's like the Williams sisters in tennis competing against each other. You know, they're not out there every week against each other. You know, the Manning brothers in football, they occasionally have a game against each other, but it's not all the time. Kyle and I got to deal with each other a lot, and that's why it's no sweat for him to drop me on a plane ride because I'm going to see him the next week, and I can give him some flack for it. And so it's really fun. Yeah, the family aspect, the team aspect, and everything that goes into all this. There's a lot to it. And back to Pat's question, I checking boxes off of the Southern 500 I've yet to win, and I've yet to win at Indianapolis. Those are the top two, and if I can find a third for my trifecta, I want to win at Watkins Glen really bad.
All right. Thank you, Kurt. Good
All
luck
right.
this weekend.
Thank you.